Students, parents, and teachers, thank you so much for joining us for this webinar today. Today, we are going to talk about a very important profile building activity, uh, which is Introduction to College Level Research. Now, before we go further, a very quick introduction about us today. So, today I have with me Mr. Vivek Bhandari, who is the founder and chief mentor at EZScholar. He is an he holds an BTech degree from IIT Delhi and an MBA from IIM Calcutta. I will be your moderator for today. My name is Abhishek and I am the head of relationship at EZScholar. A bit about EZScholar. So we help students build strong profiles and create a plan for success at leading global universities. Some of the top universities like Ivy Leagues, Oxford, Cambridge, U Toronto, UBC, and more. In terms of services, we help students with their SAT preparation. We offer live classes, and we'll talk about this very briefly towards the end, and research papers. So, without a further ado, I invite Vivek to take you further through his presentation. And just one moment, because as I mentioned, please keep your questions ready. We will take all of them towards the end of the session. So yes, welcome, Vivek.
Hello, hi, thank you, Abhishek. Are you able to see me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, hello, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Good to be here, and thanks for joining us for this session today. So, a brief introduction about myself. So, I'm a mechanical engineer from IIT Delhi. I completed my engineering in 1998. And after that, I did my MBA from IIM Calcutta. And it was during my final year at IIT Delhi wherein I was exposed to research for the first time. And this is something I like to share. It's a funny incident. So in our final years, we had to do something which was called as a BTech project. Normal courses that we used to have, they were 3 credits or 4 credit courses. The BTech project was a 10 credit course, and it had to be done over the 7th and the 8th semester. And for a BTech project, we chose something about welding. So we decided to weld steel plates using certain materials. And then depending on the composition of that material, the joint would have different strength. And then what we were experimenting with was what was the difference in strength between different composites or the different welding materials that were being used. So I and my BTech partner, we worked extremely hard, did a lot of welding in the workshop. After the welding, we would cut out the joints. After cutting out the joints, we would shape them into uh, test pieces with same width that could be tested for different types of uh, basically tensile strength or how brittle they were and what kind of compressive strength they had, etc. Anyhow, I think long story short, after working extremely hard for about 8 months, towards the end of the project, we realized that we had not got nearly enough data that would allow us to accomplish what we had set out to do. So the way that we had designed the experiment was not appropriate. It was faulty. We went to our BTech guide. We told him, okay, sir, this is what has happened. We thought we are going to test all these so many things. However, with the amount of work we have done, despite having worked extremely hard, we don't have nearly enough data that we can test all of this. Fortunately, our BTech guide cooperated and we finished our degrees in time. But it gave me a good sense, A, of research, and B, what is the importance of planning when you set out on a project of this sort. And eventually, through my career, I worked in different industries. I worked mostly in banking, finance, and real estate investment trusts. But eventually, in 2019, that's when I started on the education side. And 2020, right before COVID, is when we started with the first set of students who worked on our research papers. So Abhishek, let's move on to the next slide. So, since we are on the topic of research and why research is important, let's start with what do leading universities in the world say about research? So, you've got you've got University of Pennsylvania or UPenn, which says that nearly one third of admitted students engaged in academic research during their time in high school. Cambridge University looks for connection between a student's research and how it relates to their further studies. And MIT clearly places emphasis on research and independent projects that students have done, and also in terms of presenting their research well by explaining its significance that helps applicants differentiate themselves. These are all top research universities in the world, and they place a lot of importance not just on mastering the concepts and scoring well in exams, but also on how you can apply those concepts independently and how can you present your thoughts and the work that you've done. Next slide. Now, moving on. So these are some specific university prompts which students applying to the US usually see, which specifically ask you about the research work you have done. For example, Columbia University has a prompt where they ask you, have you completed research with a faculty member, advisor, or a mentor in an academic discipline such as science, engineering, humanities, social science, languages, or other academic interests? They also allow you to submit abstracts of your research papers along with your application. Similarly, Stanford University asks a question. They say that we are deeply curious and driven to learn in and out of classroom. Reflect on an idea or experience that makes you genuinely excited about learning. Caltech has a couple of questions. They ask you if you plan to submit a research project to Caltech. If you want to submit a research project, they accept copies of your paper or abstracts of the paper. And they also ask you about two STEM related experiences that you have had that you want to talk about. So, research serves as a valuable tool, not just to showcase your intellectual curiosity and to show that you have an interest in that subject and you have a uh, ability to work independently and communicate your ideas well. It also allows you to demonstrate strong STEM related experiences to your dream university. Next slide. So, some fun facts. So Harvard University, for example, they receive a large number of applications and their acceptance rates are in low single digits. Similarly, for Oxford, Cambridge, and other top universities, also, the admission rates, especially for international students, are in single digits. So you're competing with a pool if you're applying for Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, Stanford, MIT, UPenn, Caltech, and equivalent universities, you're competing with a large pool of international students, not just from that country, but from India, but from other places in Southeast Asia, China, Japan, Europe. And you have to stand out in terms of your application. I mean, you have to do well in your CADs. There is no way around that. You need to have good scores. If you're applying for the US, you need to have a good SAT score. If you're applying for the UK, you need to have a good score in the particular test that discipline requires. But after that, your co-curricular activities become very important. And that's where research helps qualified students stand out and differentiate the applications. Next slide. So in this session, we are going to talk a little bit about research papers and also some of the myths which surround research. I mean, some of the questions we'll address here are only college or PhD students can do research. Research is only for science students. I don't know enough how to start a research paper. I need to figure out my topic on my own, and I need to be a topper to publish a paper. So we'll talk about some of these questions, some of these thoughts, as well as any other questions that this group might have. So you may please post any other questions that you have apart from these on the chat, and we'll take them up at the end. Next slide. So first of all, what is research? Research is a systematic investigation with the objective to discover new knowledge and deepen the understanding of the world around us. Research involves asking questions, gathering evidence, and drawing conclusions based on evidence. So, at the highest level, a systematic investigation to discover new knowledge and enhance our understanding of the world around us, I think that applies to pretty much every subject. That applies to every discipline, including mathematics, chemistry, sociology, psychology, medicine, biology, etc. Similarly, asking questions, gathering evidence, and drawing conclusions based on evidence, that's a very important skill set to have in today's world, especially with the advent of AI. It is important to know what are the right questions to ask, the answers that you're getting, whether those answers are genuine or not, and then to draw the right conclusions based on that evidence. That's a more important skill set than ever in today's world. Next slide. Why research? Research helps you develop critical thinking, problem solving, and analytical skills. It also helps you develop some project planning skills and ability to generally plan. It is a unique opportunity for high school students to engage in scientific inquiry, pursue their interests, and contribute to existing knowledge. And it is for these reasons that we saw a few slides earlier that top universities like a UPenn, Cambridge, MIT, Columbia, Stanford, Caltech, they have so much preference for research that students have done during high school. Next slide. So what are the different types of research? We'll talk a little bit about that here. So first of all, there is primary research. Typically in primary research, you design an experiment, you collect data, and then you draw conclusions based on the data that you have collected. At the beginning of the presentation, I was talking about my own BTech project, where we were welding steel plates and then we were trying to cut out pieces of the joint, get them to a certain size so as to make sure the samples are all equivalent, and then to do strength testing on those. Now, that's primary research. Similarly, if you're doing a psychology project where you're administering um, questionnaires to students, that is primary research. If you are doing a program, a project where you are cultivating different type of bacteria in petri dishes, and you are looking at the growth of those bacteria as well as how they respond to different antibiotics, that's also primary research. So what is secondary research? Secondary research is where you look at existing research in that field or in that subject. You look at papers that have been written, sources that are present, and you use that as a starting point for your own work. So secondary research is also referred to as literature review. And in some subjects, for example, astronomy or maybe particle physics, there is no possibility for most of the students to do any primary research because you don't have access to the laboratories or the telescopes or particle accelerators to do those kind of experiments. So the literature review is the primary form of research that students do in those fields. However, secondary research is also important in any primary research project also, because you're supposed to read existing research that has already been done and then to start your work on basis of things on from the point where people have already experimented and work beyond that. Next slide. Let's talk about some recently published research papers that our students have done and the kind of topics that they worked upon. So the first paper you see on the left side, that is by Keshav Sheshadri. Keshav is a grade 12 student out of UK, and his primary interest was aerospace engineering. And Keshav had been participating in an activity called F1 in schools. And this paper that he did an aerodynamic review of the 2010 McLaren Mercedes rear wing. I would encourage everyone who is interested in any form of engineering to take a look at this paper. A fantastic paper. he has worked with a very qualified mentor in the aerospace industry to work on this paper. He used a certain software to model the airflow around the wing based on the shape of the wing. And it's a very, it's a very strong paper. And it was obviously supported by the work that Keshav had done in the past years in F1 in schools. Keshav, for example, he has admits for Imperial College, Cambridge University, and for Georgia Tech. He is to decide where is he finally going to join. But it's a fantastic paper, and for anybody interested in mechanical or aerospace engineering, it's definitely something to look at. The second paper on the right side, that's effect of Christmas on cryptocurrency market. So this is done by another student called Kevin Krishnan, and he's from the Middle East. And in Kevin's paper, he looked at something which in economics is referred to as calendar anomalies. So these are times of the year where, due to different reasons, there is a certain behavior of financial assets. Either the financial assets go up or they go down. So Kevin did his paper on this topic. And this is, I would say, a combination of economics and data science. Very interesting paper also. So any student who's interested in business studies, data science, economics, they should definitely take a look at this paper. Next slide. A few more papers. So on the left side, we have a paper which is exoplanet detection using machine learning. So this was done by a student from India, Prithviraj, and he is a grade 12 student. And what he did was he used the images captured by NASA and James Hubble telescope, and he used AI to analyze those images to search for exoplanets. So this is a part of computer science which is called as computer vision. The fourth paper, the one on the right side, how government corruption impacts the real economy, was done by a student called Twisha, where she investigated the impact of corruption on economic performance. So very interesting paper in macroeconomics. Next slide. And as we mentioned earlier, we help students publish. First of all, we help them conduct their research. And then we, once the paper is done, help them publish it in different international journals, which they can then submit as a part of their admission application. Let's talk about the different research subjects in which students can do their research. So at a high level, most of our students, they work on physics, biology, computer science, economics, psychology, and chemistry. However, it is better if a student has a slightly more detailed idea about what type of topic would they want to work upon in physics, whether it's quantum mechanics or whether it's mechanics or whether it's fluid dynamics, etc. Or within biology, whether it's molecular biology, genetics, etc. Because initially, it is better if a student comes with some idea that this is the broad topic that I want to work upon. Because if you say biology, it becomes too broad, because within biology, you have environmental science. Within biology, you also have genetics, you also have molecular biology, you also have biochemistry, you can also have medicines, etc. So if a student has a general idea that within this subject, this is the type of topic I want to work upon, we can guide you and provide you with some ideas about suitable topics that students have done and suitable topics that you can research upon. Great. So here we're talking about what subjects excite you the most. So that's the first step. And then what real world problem interests you. And then you can combine both of them to generate a research idea. So for example, somebody with an interest in computer science can utilize AI and comp science to come up with a project on cybersecurity to detect phishing websites. This is one idea. Similarly, you could use ideas based on AI and economics to come up with trading models. or you could use AI along with computer vision to come up with some other ideas. So if you have an interest in a subject, and if there is a real world problem you want to solve, you could marry those concepts to come up with your own unique idea. Next slide. A little bit about common mistakes. So the first one is, when you're choosing a topic, choosing a very generic or a vague topic, that is the first problem. Because you have to narrow down and you have to decide what is it that I'm going to do in this project and what is it I'm not going to do. What I'm not going to do is also very important, because without that, your project can, the scope can creep. And with that project creep, the scope creep, you may be in a situation where you're confused about what to do and you will not end up finishing that project or doing a good job. The second common mistake is not conducting a literature review. This is very important. Even if your project is about primary research, it is important to see what work has already been done and what knowledge already exists. Using that as a base, that is where you should start with your project. The third common mistake is focusing only on results and not on methodology. Methodology is extremely important for research. Not planning the timeline well. So the different steps, you have to first select the topic, you have to conduct your research, you have to decide the scope, and then you have to write, edit, and publish. And all this is time bound. So you need to plan your timeline of how you're going to accomplish and what are your deadlines for each of these steps. And the last common mistake is skipping peer reviews or feedback. It is important to get feedback from your peers, that can be one, but more importantly from a teacher, a mentor, or a professor who has experience in that field, because that can help uh, focus your research and give you better outcomes in terms of what the problem you're trying to solve. Next slide. A few things to keep in mind as you embark upon your research paper. First of all, identify the project which is most suitable for you. Then decide whether you're going to conduct primary research, whether you're going to do a computer-based simulation, whether you're going to do a maker's project, or you're going to do secondary research. Then you have to understand the time and resources available. This is extremely important because, for example, the expectations from a PhD student are different compared to expectations from a high school student. And that is because a PhD student has more time, they have more knowledge, and they have access to a laboratory and resources that they can use for conducting the experiments. On the other hand, a high school student may not have access to all those resources. So the expectation is different. So planning the right scope of research based on the resources and time available, that is extremely crucial. Then you need to have a discussion with your research guide on the research question, what you will do, what you will not do, how will you collect the data. And then you have to work on putting your methodology, the evidence that you have collected, along with your conclusions, and finalize your paper and submit it for publication. So this is the normal sequence. Next slide. So on this slide, we talk a little bit about how does research work with EZScholar. So as I said earlier, if somebody says, I want to do research in economics or I want to do research in biology, we ask them to be a little more specific. Tell us, what do you want to do within biology? Is it going to be botany? Is it going to be biotechnology? Is it going to be biomedicine? Is it going to be genetics? If you want to do something within economics, what do you want to do? Is it more like a data science project? Is it more like a macroeconomics project? Is it more like a developmental economics project? Because once we understand that within that subject, what kind of topics interest you, we then share resumes of mentors who specialize in that particular field. So, I mean, looking at the mentor's resume and their own research, that also gives you some ideas about kind of topics you can select or kind of topics you can work upon within your overall umbrella of interests. So after that, there is an initial meeting in which the mentor wants to understand what is it that you want to do. They also talk about their own work, the things that they have done. And then they discuss the scope of what they're going to do with you, how they're going to help you, what kind of work can be done, what kind of resources can be used. Uh, Assuming after that, if the project is a go and you move ahead, you normally meet the mentor for about 10 to 12 weeks. During this period, the mentor gives you some research papers of existing research in that field. The mentor may also talk about their own work that they have done, and you're expected to read those papers. If you have doubts, if you have questions, you're absolutely welcome to ask those questions to the mentors. These are not lecture sessions, but in case there is some concept which you need help with, they will definitely help you understand that concept or they will cover that concept. These are more like discussions where they give you some reading materials. You come prepared for a discussion in the next meeting. You come prepared with the work that you have done, etc. And then by around session 3, we like the mentors and the students who finalize the topic. And then they work on the data collection, simulation, literature review, and an initial submission. After that initial submission, the mentor can provide you feedback. They can look at what you have done, provide you additional things that you can do. And generally, by week 12 is when the students complete their reports and submit it for publication. Next slide. So as I said earlier, the mentors that we work with are not just the expert in economics. They obviously, they may be a professor in economics, but there would be something within economics which they specialize in. Similarly, within comp science, somebody may specialize in data science, somebody may specialize in blockchain, somebody may specialize in artificial intelligence, and so on. So the mentors that we work with, they are either professors or they're postdoctoral researchers who are working in a particular field or researching in a particular field. And that's why the kind of depth they're able to provide to the students in the research is phenomenal. Next slide. Yeah, so these are some of the mentor profiles of mentors that our students work with. So now we come to the EZScholar advantage. So one thing which we stand out for is one-on-one sessions with professors and postdoctoral researchers from top institutions. I think this makes a big difference because you're not just working with a professor for physics. I mean, if you're interested in photonics, you'll work with somebody who is working in photonics. Or if you're interested in, for example, astronomy, you will work with an expert who is doing their postdoctoral work or who's a professor of astronomy. So that actually provides a lot of depth because it is not a general physics mentor or a biology mentor. It would be a mentor who is the expert in that particular field within the subject. This also provides you to choose research topics of your choice. The program is conducted through the year. Most of the students do their research work during the summer, but the program is available through the year. And then high quality papers are published in international journals. And based on the work that you have done, you have a chance of receiving a letter of recommendation from the mentor. Normally, I mean, if you have attended all the classes, if you have completed your work timely, they're happy to write a letter of recommendation. It's not assured, but they're normally happy to write it if you've done good work. Next slide. So these are some pictures of successful students who have worked with us on research papers over the last few years. And you will see most of the leading universities in US and UK over here. So we're very proud of the work that our students have done and the admits that they've secured. Next slide. I think that brings us to the question and answer.